Welcome to Larry the Alchemist, and on today's episode, 5 key things that define heavy metal for me. I was watching someone do a reaction video on Iron Maiden's Aces High, and this person had never listened to metal before, and the way they were reacting to this, they were shocked by all these different things, and I thought, well, yeah, that's what heavy metal is. So I thought it would be fun to come up with 5 things that separate heavy metal from other types of music, things that define it, things that make it what it is, the reasons why we love it. All right, I came up with 5 points. I didn't put them in order except for my number 1 point. And I'm going to start with number 1. I think this is the most important point, and it sort of runs through all the other points to varying degrees. And that for me is intensity. We could say intensity, we could say power, we could say energy. There is something to heavy metal that you hear it, you feel it, your heart rate goes up. There's intensity in the volume. There's intensity in the speed. It doesn't have to be the speed. It could be the slowness. An intense doom band, right? Playing this slow, crushing riff. The power of the riffs and everything, right? The subject matter is intense. It's serious. Not to throw in some bands that just their images are a little bit more lighthearted, or so you could say. But for the most part, heavy metal is serious stuff, right, man? It's business. They mean business. Seriousness in the attitude of the musicians. One of the things this guy commented on was like, wow, look at these guys on stage. You're like so into it. And it's true, right? You know, there's like Slayer, and when bands are up there and there's just this intensity, there's focus, this power, this energy. And it comes through in their live show too, you know, just the energy coming off the stage. It's why we love, you know, it's almost like, to really appreciate heavy metal, you got to go to a concert at some point and feed off that energy. The album covers are intense. They're meant to grab your eye. They're meant to draw you in. The fans are intense, right? The stereotype of the Slayer fan screaming Slayer at the top of his lungs. You know, we're people that take this real seriously. We're intense about it. Not all music is like that. You know, you're not going to hire a heavy metal band to play during dinner time at your wedding, right? You're going to hire a jazz band because a jazz band can blend into the background. You're not going to hire a metal band because it's not music to be ignored. It's the intensity and seriousness of it and power of it. It cannot be ignored. Even if you don't like it, you're going to notice it, right? If it comes on the radio, if it comes on the stereo, if a band is playing live. All right, number 2 is virtuosity. And this is in the really all aspects of metal. You might first think of it with the guitar. The guitar is the limits of the guitar have been pushed and explored. You think about Eddie Van Halen, Steve Vai, Randy Rhoads, Dimebag, just so many great guitar players in heavy metal that have pushed the instrument to its limit. And you can go across all the instruments, and there's somebody that's done that in the drums, and John Bonham on the drums, the death metal drummers, you know, the way they push the boundaries, their virtuosic playing, bass playing, Cliff Burton, Steve Harris, Billy Sheehan, you know, guys like that have changed the way the instrument is played in a lot of ways. The vocalists pushing the range of the human voice, Robert Plant, Jeff Tate, Bruce Dickinson, and even in stuff like death metal where they're doing things with their voice that it's like unheard of. How did they do this, right? How many times have people have never heard metal and they hear somebody growling and screaming in the death metal vocals or black metal vocals? They're like, how is this person doing this? You know, it's like they're training their voices to do these things that are just superhumans. They're like superhuman athletes, or some guy that's able to power lift an incredible amount of weight or something. They're just doing things that are beyond the normal capabilities of the instrument or the voice. All right, number 3 for me is imagery. And this kind of, I mentioned this in the intensity, the power thing with album covers and stuff like that. But I do think, and this isn't a negative, you know, because most people would say, well, heavy metal isn't an image-conscious music, but it kind of is in a lot of ways, and it does define the music, right? The album covers define the music. You think about legendary album covers, Master of Puppets, Rain and Blood, you know, whatever. the band logos, the band names, the T-shirts, right? There's just a strong imagery to heavy metal that even if you're not really sure what heavy metal sounds like, you can probably pick out the imagery of it all. You could see you could tell the difference between a heavy metal T-shirt and a country T-shirt, country band's T-shirt, right? Because it's an important part of it of heavy metal. You know, the shirts, the image, the logos, and all that kind of stuff, and even the way the bands dress and present themselves. Even bands that don't necessarily dress up or anything, they still have a look to them. You know, I think about like Lemmy. You don't really think of Lemmy as somebody who dressed up, quote, but he had a look. He had a very cool heavy metal hard rock look, and there's a lot of bands that are like that, whether it's the hair or just the way they just sort of present. Even if they got more of a street clothes type of look, it still has a rock and roll heavy metal image look to it. All right, number 4 for me, a key thing that defines heavy metal is boundary pushing. This is something, I mentioned the instruments already, pushing the limits of the instrument, but even within the music itself, playing faster, super long songs, super short songs, bringing in outside elements, whether it be an orchestra, some people singing in different languages, different cultures, different instruments. It's always kind of pushing things and trying to do something different. In the early days of metal, it was about speed and the virtuosity on the instruments. But now you see it with just trying to bring in different elements. It's always evolving. I could have called this point maybe evolution too. Heavy metal is something that's always kind of moving, always evolving. And that's, again, not something you see on all other styles of music. Like, I don't follow country, but do you get the sense that country music is trying to break down walls and chart new territory sonically? No, I don't get that impression at all. But with heavy metal, it's constantly evolving, and sometimes that can be, for some people, that could be like, sometimes it goes a bridge too far for some people, and it's like, this isn't metal anymore, it's gone too far. But I respect that, and I admire that, and I appreciate the fact that metal is a type of music that it just doesn't sit still. It's always sort of moving and doing something different and trying to be different and trying. And just when you think you've heard it all, something comes out and you're like, wow, that's different. I never heard something like that before. So, all right, number 5 for me is the fans and the band. I think that there's a very unique connection in heavy metal between the fans and the bands. This doesn't exist in all types of music. I mentioned jazz, right? I play bass, and I played once for a jazz show. It's like a lunchtime concert thing, and during the show, I started clapping my hands, and the people in the audience started clapping along with the song. And when the show was over, the band leader was really mad. He was like, "Oh, you shouldn't have done that. They're supposed to just be sitting and watching." And I thought, like, how terrible is that? Like, you want that connection with the people that are there listening to the music, but not all types of music have that. Classical music, right? You're supposed to show up, sit there quietly, listen to the music. The orchestra's on stage, a curtain comes down, you leave, and the orchestra goes out the back door. There's no, doesn't feel like there's any sort of direct connection. You think about heavy metal and Bruce Dickinson up there, scream for me, scream, and getting the crowd into it, and they're out there looking at the crowd, and there's just this connection and this energy. The band is feeding off the fans are feeding off the band, and even with the music, the fans are passionate about it, the band is passionate about it. When the band is passionate, the fans are passionate. Again, there's just sort of this circular connected thing between the fans and the bands that I think is really, it may not be unique to heavy metal. I mean, there's other types of music where the fans are really into it, and the band and the artist connects with their fans. But I think in heavy metal, there's just something special about the heavy metal fan. And I was gonna make that as a point number 6, was the heavy metal fan, but I want to save that for another video, because I've always wanted to do a video on what makes heavy metal fans unique. So, okay, there you go. There's my 5 key things that define heavy metal for me. Let me know what you think of my points. I'm sure you've got some for yourself there. things that separate heavy metal from other types of music, that make heavy metal special, the reasons why we love heavy metal. Put them in the comments down below. Till we see you again, make sure you stay heavy, stay metal.